Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
I'm John.
We're going to go over tonight. Finally, it's been a couple days since the loss to Alabama for the national championship. Gave a couple days to let it sit in a little, plus a little bit under the weather. So it's just been it's been an interesting week. I think I partied a little too hard on Monday night, and then I woke up Tuesday, and I've just been stuffed up pretty bad for the whole week. And I'm actually feeling a lot better now. It's just trying to get through this. Pretty sure it's a head cold, but it's just one of those things where we're in this era right now that just another thing to have to worry about. All right, so we're going to talk about the Buckeyes' loss to Alabama. It was a disappointing loss, obviously, for a lot of reasons. I truly feel after watching that game that wasn't indicative of who they are as a team. But, there was some signs throughout the year that possibly brought us to this. John, your general thoughts on the loss.
Well, just want to say I'm a little under the weather too. I think I sound a little bit better than you do, but so yeah, I mean, has there ever been a game that felt more 06 national title Florida game, 06-07 Florida to you than this game?
Yeah, no,
our entire game plan, just like that game, is first play of the game, it's got knocked out of the game. So I just no adjustments were made on defense. Offense, probably in that game, you could have just kind of ran right up the field on them with Beanie and Pittman, and Tressel never did it. This game, there was definitely looks that Fields and Day could have had. I mean, their safeties were depleted. There were looks that they could have had down the field. I mean, there was a lot of times Ohio State's receivers were open. So yeah, that's what it felt like to me. It's just there was no adjustment on either way. Just kind of you didn't expect to get punched that hard, and they had no answer once Trey Sermon was out.
Yeah. The two games that came to mind was the 06 Florida game that defensively it felt like it was just a mirror copy of how we played that game.
Yep.
And that I also got a lot of vibes of the 2013 Clemson game. Now, Sammy Watkins, it was a little bit different how they lined up against him, but again, they did a lot of pop passes with him. They did a lot of, the jet sweep passes, a lot of the bubble screens. And every time he would go into motion, the guy that was on him would go way back by the safety. And there would be nobody coming up on the other side and come up on him. It would be you can't give that dude that type of space. And they felt like it was the same thing with Devontae Smith. And it just was awful. It sucked.
I mean, do you remember a game that you can think of that's as soon as the ball is snapped, you're well, there's a 20-yard gain right there.
Yeah.
That's just how it felt. It was as soon as the ball was snapped, you saw Devontae had an entire sideline wide open. It's well, there's another first down. And yeah, it's just, I don't want to get too many things going at once with this. It was really no adjustments were made. I mean, Ryan Day obviously doesn't trust, his defensive back personnel enough, at least the depth. He didn't trust the depth enough. And it kind of seemed like he got a little too spooked that Togiai and Tyreek Smith were out. And I don't know if he just thought Saban was oh, two of their defensive line starters are out, so I'm just going to pound the rock at them all day. But I mean, to run a 4-4 against Alabama in that situation with that team, which what they've done all year is just throw all over everybody.
Yeah,
God, it just made no sense.
Yeah, definitely. There was parts of the game. So similar to Clemson, we were trading shots back and forth really in the game. I just felt differently at different points. So, we tied it at 14, but I did not like what I was seeing on defense at all. And I'm just Alabama's going to start getting some stops. And if they don't start covering Devontae Smith a little bit better. Now, granted, the guy won the Heisman Trophy. He's a phenomenal athlete. We saw that in the game. He did a lot of things, and they move him around a lot. But tough Borland on Devontae Smith in the slot, and I'm just like, and I was over here watching the game, and I'm just like, how are you doing this? Like, I don't care if it's unconventional. You put one of your corners on him, regardless of where he's at. If he's going to line up in the backfield, you have a corner right on the line of scrimmage watching him. If he's going to line up in the slot, you put the corner and put Tough Borland on somebody else. And I mean, that's a mismatch, yes, but it's not that much of that was a big mismatch. And so,
that's another thing that you mentioned, having the corner on him, especially like if he's going to the backfield, have the corner up. I mean, the other thing that and you kind of touched on this about people, when they're following the motion, going all the way back towards the safety. I mean, why? I get that you didn't want those guys out of position in case Najee Harris runs, but why the hell didn't you at least have like a linebacker follow him in motion, just, right there, so you at least have somebody within the area of him? I mean, it's just like they had no answer for him. Devontae Smith is not, Devontae Smith is a lot faster than me. He's taller than me, so I mean, I'm definitely heavier than he is. But in the realm of elite receivers, when you go to their intangibles or tangibles, like he's not that fast, he's not that big. Like, why wouldn't you have Shaun Wade press him more? Like, it was
exactly.
And that was that was another thing that just baffled me so much. I mean, shame on Nick Saban, and I won't say this often, but for having Jalen Waddle even out there taking snaps. But the fact that they had him on the field, why were you playing 10, 15 yards off of him? Why was he not on the ground after every snap?
Yeah, exactly.
Take him out of the play. Maybe they just thought he was a decoy, but obviously they went to him those couple times. So yeah, just there was head scratchers all over the game. Obviously, they weren't prepared to go away from Trey Sermon. I mean, the fact that Marcus Crowley's, getting his first snaps of the year during the national title game, I just at that point, I realized Steel Chambers might have butterfingers, but I don't know how you could have unless he was hurt. I don't know why he wouldn't have been your first running back to see the field. I mean, Marcus Crowley hasn't even taken a handoff all year.
Yeah.
It's not even non-meaningful snaps. He hasn't taken a single one all season. So I thought Master Teague, I thought he could get things going, and that ended quickly.
Early in the game, he was running fine, but then he doesn't have a lot of tricks in the bag, and Alabama was kind of ready for it. And you got to Ohio State at a point, they need to try different things with different types of routes, passing the ball to other guys, because they were keying on him too much.
Yeah. And I didn't hate Ryan Day going for it on that 4th and 1 with the running back. It seemed like he tried to go tempo and trick him. But what the craziest thing was, every time he went tempo and they weren't lined up, they beat our offensive line. It was you would expect, if guys are standing up and they're not set, they're going to get blown off the line. But it's every time it happened, what was his name? Who was their big defense? The big rusher.
Broad something, whatever.
Is it Bazemore?
Bazemore. Big guy. That's what I called him. Big guy. Big guy in there again.
I can't believe his name's slipping me right now, but it was he would be standing up, not ready, and then he would just beat Josh Myers, or he'd beat the line and get through for the tackle. And I'm just how the hell can you do that? You should be getting blown off the ball. So I mean, Alabama. Yeah, I'm not going to take anything away from them. They are a great team. They probably were the better. I mean, they were the better team in that game. You can't lose by 28 and say, what ifs or probablys or anything like that. But Ohio State, they're not that much better than Ohio State that game should have got that lopsided.
Yeah, exactly. So let's quickly go through the offense first, and then we'll do the defense, and then we'll just kind of close this up. So offensively, the things that drive, I think, the thing out of everything. So Sermon goes down. That was a big spook. Wyatt Davis has been fighting this for the last how many weeks. He goes down. then it's like, seemed like the offensive line started going downhill after that. And then once Battle is out of the game, why did they challenge Alabama at all down the middle of the field?
I don't know. I mean, things were open. And that's the thing. Things were open. I mean, look how quickly they got down the field on the Garrett Wilson touchdown. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There were things there. I don't know. It was like his game plan was try to keep them off the field with Sermon. And it just, once he got hurt, he didn't get it. He didn't adjust. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like everything we said wouldn't happen again after that Northwestern game. I mean, there was just little parts of that. There was like little parts of things that we said, like, oh, we think it's fixed, that just came back to bite them in the butt.
Yeah. They got Fields out of the game. They just kind of got him mentally out of the game. I thought there was things there that he could have did in the middle of the field, especially on Battle's out. I mean, I don't care. They probably have stud backups behind Battle, but I mean, it is Alabama. But again, they're not the starters. They're not playing. So I mean, challenge them. You know, they had one good throw down the middle of the field to the tight end. I mean, it was a great catch by the tight end, but Fields put it to where only he could catch it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful play. I don't know if Fields actually, if he was hurt in that game, if he was a little like couple passes got knocked down and he was like lost some confidence, because a lot of his balls like floated. Did you notice that? Like,
yeah,
there wasn't a lot of zip on anything. It was just like real, just like touch passes. Real, just like I said, they just like floated out of there. And there were some completions, but I just feel like if he was throwing the ball, I don't know, if there was a little bit more zip to some of the passes, they could have, got turned around, got bigger gains on them.
Yeah.
What is there to say? I mean, it was just not impressive all around.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to where the whole argument about, are they fresh? Are they, are they not gelled? And for the whole year, like we thought that they would wake up, but we've had concerns the whole year. We've mentioned them that there is points that they just didn't seem like they were gelling. Now, last week against Clemson or 2 weeks ago, whatever it is now, I think could be more. There's just a lot of emotion got put into that game, and they wanted that one, and maybe they just put too much emotion into it. And I think last week's game. Now, when you look at it, the Clemson, the whole them being more fresh, I think that was just they were a really good football team, just as good as Clemson, and they were just ready to beat their butts that night. When in reality, I think they really didn't gel at all this year, because we never established a running game for a good chunk of the season at different parts. And then when we finally started to establish a running game, we never really established a backup.
No.
And that definitely showed. The receivers are fine, but again, I think at times we got too in love with the deep throw this year. And then when we needed the deep throw, when we needed to maybe challenge their safeties down the middle of the field when Battle gets hurt, we don't do it. So they were definitely offensively, they were just way off the page. And then when Sermon went down, we never really ever tried to establish. I mean, I don't care if it's you try to bring all of them in. If Steele comes in, T comes in, Crowley comes in, and you run all three of them, but they got to try to establish something. You got to at least keep Alabama a little bit more honest than they were. And then eventually the game just started getting away from them. And at that point, then, you saw that last week against Clemson. You can't do that against a good defense up front, and they're just going to start teeing off on you.
Yeah. I mean, I take nothing away from at Clemson. This year, Clemson had some young players in some key places. Like Clemson was a bit overrated this year.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I agree.
I don't think Ohio State was, because Ohio State beat Clemson. I think Ohio State would have beat Florida. I think Ohio State would have beat A&M just like Alabama did. But I think Ohio State would beat Notre Dame, but not.
If you look at how bad Alabama beat all these teams they played this year, I mean, they're not a bad football team. Like they beat A&M as bad as they beat Ohio State. They beat Notre Dame by what, like 17 or whatever. I mean, it's just they kicked everybody's butt. So like,
Well, Florida came back from like 3 scores against them. And that's why I just like, if Florida could do it, and I know Florida has a more dynamic offense than Ohio State does, but not that much more.
I mean, they shouldn't, though. I mean, we have a great play caller. We have great receivers. We have a great quarterback. I mean, they should be just as dynamic as anybody. But, we have a lot of, it's just, I don't know. I think, and then I think the offense, again, they never gelled to the point that they needed the gel. So there was just a lot of plays. I don't think even with a veteran quarterback, a veteran offensive line, and veteran receivers, once Saban went down, it was like it seemed like they took a lot out of the playbook. There was a lot that they threw against Clemson that I thought was still open and that they could have thrown against Alabama, and they didn't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like I said, they didn't make adjustments anywhere. And it just, like you said, I mean, it was like with Master Teagan, there's like, well, he can only do so much. So this is all we can do. And not trying to knock the kid. It's just, you saw where him and Trey were different in this game.
Yeah.
And I do want to say about the offense before we move on, or before your next point is, I mean, I get Ryan Day's like, we're not stopping their offense. What on earth was he doing, though, running the ball at the end of that first half? They're calling time. Like, well, one, you get an injury with Wyatt Davis, so they didn't have to call the timeout there. Or was that Harry Miller's? I can't remember which. But it's like, I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense.
My last point before we move on to defense. The one thing in the first quarter, they threw that crossing route, and now it was a bad throw by Fields. He missed Garrett Wilson. That could have easily been 6. I mean, there was a whole sideline
open.
Like when I saw that on the replay, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and I don't know who's coming backside, but somebody better have a great angle because he's definitely going to the red zone and he might be going for the whole thing. And I'm like, why do they come back to that any other point in the game? Especially again, when Battle gets out, like you could do different things on stuff like that. And maybe when Battle went out, they started running more zone. I mean, I only watched the game once. So I don't know. Did Alabama start running a little bit more zone than they typically do? I didn't think they did, but I mean, there was a point in that second half where I was starting to get a little, my mind was starting to get a little lost in the game. So
yeah, no, that was, I felt the same way. It was just kind of like, why it was wide open. Why not go back to it? Just the run wasn't working. I think the pass would have worked though. I really do. Yeah. Like, I think they could have done more short passes and just moved the ball that way.
Yeah. All right. So defensively, obviously we had the COVID, Togiai, Tyreek Smith out because of COVID on the offensive line. And this was the game where you really felt like the injuries that we've had in the secondary throughout the year, Cam Brown going down, different things that they finally caught up to us in this game because Alabama, I mean, I get Najee Harris is an unbelievable star, but you should never go outside. On early downs, you should be running 4-3s. You should be primarily playing nickel against them when they get into third downs. And they gave up way too many thirds down for first downs in that game. We actually held Alabama to a lot of third downs. And I'm like, so the first and second down defense actually wasn't a bad game plan. And Najee broke off and made a couple plays and stuff like that. But, I mean, they were hitting him. They were getting him down. I mean, they were making him feel it. And
I mean, he even said that after the game that they were blowing him up.
Yeah.
But so we were biting on every single play. And at that point, they're just playing pitch and catch out there.
And then they killed us. And then on the defensive thing, so they ran that blitz with Browning and he got that fumble. And when they tried to run it again, Alabama was ready for it. And they had a play called to that side. And it was like Ohio State never blitzed for the rest of the night. And I'm just like, that's the point of blitzing, that you might give up a big score, but the idea is make Mac Jones have to make quick decisions in his head. And it was like they did not want to challenge him for the rest of the night after that. And I'm just like, come on. You got to him one time. You can get to him again. I mean, come up with a different blitz if that's the case, but you should still be coming at this guy as much as possible.
Yeah. Like I said, there's just a lot of that game that, I mean, if you're going to do a base defense that you haven't run before, at least do a nickel against them and trust your defensive line can get a hand on Najee and slow him down. Like a 4-4 just got, I mean, I just never, they just got killed. And I don't know. I mean, I know it's because they wanted to stop the run. I don't know why they emphasized it that much. I know they trust their linebackers more than their DBs, but again, that is what it is. You're not athletic enough to cover those guys. Yeah. They should have been playing press. I mean, especially Devontae Smith gets hurt and you're playing 15 yards off of Michi. Like, oh, their only play there is a freaking slant to Michi. And there are so many plays in that game that, and I already mentioned it, like with Devontae Smith, but there were so many plays in that game. As soon as the ball was snapped, it's like, well, there's a first down. There's a first down. Well, and they tried to force them to drive the ball on them. But I mean, I think that was the plan was we're going to make them drive the ball and then they're going to end up kicking field goals. And it's like, well, you got to stop them in the red zone to make them kick field goals.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. So when Devontae goes down, I know we're down at half and, we're down, a couple scores but like I said, we have a dynamic offense. It was right there. I didn't think when I saw what they came out with in the second half, I'm like, man, they just don't want to be here anymore. They're kind of, I think they just are done with the game because when Smith went down, I think they could have come back in that game. They should have brought the pressure up and they should have went to, no huddle, 2-minute offense until they got back into the game. And I think they could have done it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but after Smith gets hurt, you all right?
I just caught.
Looks violent on my end. But no, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they get it back within 14 after Smith leaves the game?
Yeah, I believe so. And so they had opportunities there. And, and Shaun Wade again. And, I'm not a Shaun Wade hater. He's just not, especially when he plays off coverage. He's a big physical guy and he should get up on people as much as possible. I know he did on one play, he did let Smith go right by him. And so if you're going to play press coverage, push them, bump them. But when he plays off, he's just, I don't know. He's not, I don't know if he knows if his hips just don't turn correctly or what, but guys run right by him at times. And it's just not a good thing. And I said,
I don't know that play if he was cramping or not or something. I mean, because he looked hurt on that play that Devontae Smith outran him on the sideline.
That could be too.
I don't want to make excuses, but something didn't look right.
Yeah, it definitely. I've kind of hinted at this earlier in the year, but I'm going to say it now. I mean, again, I like Shaun Wade. I think Shaun Wade can still be a good NFL quarterback. He needs to be drafted the right team. He'll get drafted probably, I don't know if he's a first round guy, but there's possibly a better chance he'll get drafted by a better team. So there's ways that he might get used then differently than if he would get drafted early. But Sevyn Banks is the better of our two quarters. I thought he had a fairly good game. Again, I would have liked to see him press a little bit more, but it seemed like when the ball went to him, he didn't, at least nothing right now is sticking out at me that he didn't make any glaring errors. Again, I just think a lot of it came down to the injuries finally caught up to him. I mean, I think they call a lot different defensive game plan at this point of the season if Cam Brown's still healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you never really have the time to get your freshmen in there to trust them in these situations. Also, it's just, at that point, I just like, you know what, you go to that game. It's just, it is what it is. We got to run a nickel. So guys, you got 10 days to do get this down the best you can. And then we just got to run with what we have. I mean, to have 4 linebackers out there, that was just stupid.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna kill Kerry Combs a lot like a lot of people are. There's definitely things that disappointed, but there's a lot of things that showed me this year that they definitely they are hurt from not having an off season because of all the COVID issues. So I would like, hopefully, we start getting some of this stuff behind us so we can actually have an off season. I think they definitely got hurt not having spring football and not being able to implement the defense then, because it is so hard to try to implement something in August when you're also trying to get ready for a game. And then on top of this past year, you didn't know if you're having a season, and then the season gets canceled, and then you got brought back, and it's like so.
And every other game got canceled.
Yeah,
I mean that was the other thing is like you were already behind the 8 ball, and then every other like you played 3 weeks, and then from that point moving forward, every other game got canceled on you.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was just no. They didn't gel. They didn't have any cohesion going through this season away. Yeah, I mean it is what it is. It was definitely a season. At the end of the day, I think I'm happy. Looking back after these last couple of days, they got to play football. I'm glad we got the season. It'd be ridiculous to me, especially when we're going through some of the worst like COVID. I mean, I understand the vaccine's out there now, but we've had a pretty bad couple weeks now of just COVID related issues within the country. So we're gonna gear up for spring football. Like that made no sense to me. Like the whole thing to me was when they said that they were gonna play spring football, I'm like, you might as well just cancel the season and come back next year because
Well, let's be realistic. The season would have ended up getting canceled.
Yeah.
If they would have played after the NCAA play with cases going up, they would have just canceled the season. There's no way football would have been played in the winter and spring. That wasn't happening.
So I don't understand how the Southern teams didn't have the issues coming down the stretch like we did with some of these issues. Maybe those Alabama COVID parties, like in the summer that people were joking about. Maybe those weren't really such jokes. And
well, maybe there was a couple football players that went to them as well, because I think that was a actual thing was COVID parties down in Alabama, but apparently Saban told the team to go there also.
Yeah. So, and that's not trying to make light of COVID. It seems like coming down to the stretch here, the last how many weeks for the Buckeyes? I mean, it's killed us, and it's just finally caught up to them. And
well, I mean, a big part of that was also that everyone else in the Big Ten, they pretty much shut down their program for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Ohio State shut down for 4 days. They canceled a game, and I mean, they tried to do everything they could to get a season going so they could play for a national title. So, I mean, I don't know if they would have taken 2 weeks off, would they have been considered then? I'm not sure. Like if they don't have that Michigan State win, I'm not sure, but then Michigan would have canceled afterwards. So then you would have lost 3 games in a row. And now instead of 5 games that everyone bitched about that you get to play in the Big Ten title game, you would have had 4 games. So
yeah,
if they wanted to play for the national title, they did the right thing, but it just, they were wounded. They were wounded all the way down, all the way throughout the end, and they beat lesser teams because they were better. But then when you got to the end and, the guys that got it were your 2 defensive linemen, yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. Before we sign off, because I think we will be drawing this thing to a close here. We'll get more in depth and just our feel about the season and some of the COVID stuff on the next episode, and we'll talk some recruitment, and we'll talk Urban Meyer. As if anybody doesn't know, he went, he's NFL, he's back coaching, went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're gonna get into all that. We'll get into it on the next episode when we shoot our next thing. We just wanted to get this one up today, and then with us being a little sick, that it's just get out of here kind of quick on it.
I didn't want to say just because first big one. I mean, not that anyone expected or didn't expect it, but Shaun Wade did declare for the NFL draft today. So you haters can be happy, but I think Sean's going to be fine in the NFL.
Yeah. And there's going to be some big decisions coming down the stretch. There's some rumors on some of the pay sites that Munford might be staying. There's a rumor out there about Fields. So I mean, and right now those are all rumors. I would say that if I was going to put money down on anything, I would say that those guys are going to the NFL. But
Yeah.
Rumors are rumors. So I mean, we'll probably have more clarity by the next, because obviously they have to start making decisions quickly. So we'll probably start knowing pretty quick who's going on after that. But do you think they just threw everything that they had left, and that was to beat Clemson, and then they just had nothing? And I'm not trying to make excuses. Alabama beat their butts, but some points were made. I remember last year, some points were made after LSU beat Clemson, and I thought LSU was the better team. Let's just get that down. But there was a lot of things that were said that, Clemson and Ohio State played such a physical and nasty game, and just everything got left on the field. And kind of when you think back on this was a nasty physical game. Also, there was a lot of injuries on both sides of the field, during that Clemson game. And then on top of it, did Ohio State just every ounce of gasoline they had left to the engine that they used that night? And, so, I mean, I just want your thoughts on it. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses. Alabama, I mean, we got outcoached, we got outplayed, they beat us. Nick Saban, I mean, he's the best coach that, I never got to watch Bear Bryant coach. I never got to watch Woody Hayes coach. Obviously guys like Newt Rockne and stuff like that. I mean, our parents weren't even alive, and
Right.
our grandparents were barely alive when he's coaching, or back to even our great grandparents. Like, Nick Saban's the best football coach I have ever I might ever get to see in my lifetime, and and so we lost that game. But what do you think? Did Clemson? It was just everything that we had, we just put out on the field for that game.
I don't know. I'm kind of the same with you. I mean, you definitely put a ton of effort into beating those guys because that's what they wanted. And I know they say they wanted a national championship, and maybe they wanted Clemson in the national championship, but they wanted to beat that team so badly. I'll say this, and it can be rhetorical. You don't have to answer it. You can think about it. In 2014, if Ohio State, beats Alabama and goes to the national title game, and another Alabama's waiting for them, do they win that game?
Yeah, I think they do. I'm trying to think who that year. I mean, Florida State is the only team possibility that had the same type of athletes that Ohio State and Alabama did. They're the only ones there. If Florida State beats Oregon, I think Ohio State still wins the national title.
Okay.
But there was other factors that go into that. I think that everybody was circling the wagons hardcore around Cardell. And I think it really showed up in those playoffs that, it was about winning it because, we got there, and now we're going to show that we deserve to be there.
And, I was thinking about it, and I know we want to get out of here, but that Oregon game, I mean, we honestly could have beat those guys like 70-20 in that game, because those four turnovers are the flukiest turnovers that you could ever have together in one game. I mean, the one is a guy that catches a ball and he decides to cut back in to try to make a play and he fumbles. The other one, the interception, is a guy that catches the ball and they take the ball from him. Cardale fumbles the ball, winding up. And then the other one was a bad handoff to Zeke. Like, none of those were forced turnovers. Like, none of them were just anything on Oregon. It was all just fluky stuff from Ohio State. That's where I'm at though, is if Ohio State, if it was like they played Florida State, and Florida State was as good as Clemson this year, because like you said, they had the athletes, and then Alabama's the end game for us in 2014. I don't know if we win that game either, because we would be a little bit more beat up. I think we would have, but especially, Zeke stays healthy, we would have been fine. They still would have respected Cardale's arm. So I think they would have won, but man, I don't know. I don't think we would have won this game. I know, and when you watch, it's just like, how could we have won the game? But we left a lot of points on the field and a lot to be desired with our game plan and lack of adjustments.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I think we'll put a finishing touch on this show. Again, sorry I sound like this, and hopefully I didn't blow anybody's eardrums out by coughing in their ear. I'm trying to pull my face away every time I got one up. But next episode we'll get more. Like I said, we're gonna get more into who left for the league. We're gonna talk about Urban going to the NFL, and then we'll put a little recap, our bow on this season, and we're gonna get ready for the 2021 season. Hopefully we get some winter practicing in here, or winter drills, and we get a spring season and spring practice.
Yeah, let those early enrollees actually get out there and start working this year.
I'm definitely intrigued about next year's team, because how we've recruited. We still got a boatload of talent on this team, even if every guy that possibly could leave does leave. So here's on to the next year. And I just want to remind everybody in Ohio State, Buckeye Nation, that like I was thinking about this the other day, and yeah, I would love the trade places and be Nick Saban right now. I would love to be, the guy that's won 6 national titles for Alabama, and then he's got the 7th with LSU. Like, I would love that. Like, that would be wild to me if he had 6 if Ohio State had 6 national titles in the last how many years. That would be great. But I just want to remind everybody, since 2002, I've watched Ohio State play for 5 national titles. They've won 2 of them. We've also seen them play, and this is not even counting the 2010 season where they lost middle of the season. The game before possibly going to the national championship or a bowl ban, we've possibly seen them almost have 5 more national titles, play for 5 more national titles. I mean, they lost in 03 to Michigan. They would have went to the national title that year. They lost in 13 to Michigan State. They would have went to the national title. 12 is the bowl ban. Clemson twice in the semifinal. So, I mean, that's 5 more games. So that's possibly 10 times that you could have seen Ohio State, play for it all. I know it sucks, but this is still, I mean, and I know a lot of people on Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff. I saw a lot of emotional stuff over the last couple of days. Some craziness. The couple guys that said Ryan Day needs to be fired. I mean, I don't know what reality you're in right now, but I get it. People say emotional things when tough losses happen, but I mean, this is still the golden age right now for Ohio State football. I mean, this is as dominant of any. I mean, there's not many. There's outside of Alabama. I mean, Clemson can't even say it, and they have the same amount of national titles in this period. I mean, we still have had many more shots at it than they've had at it. So, I mean, we're right there. I mean, you're right there with the best. It's just Nick Saban. I mean, I've made jokes in the past. I think he's made a deal with the devil. I'm still leaning that way because, God, that guy is I don't know how he always does it, but he puts a hell of a product out there on the field.
Yeah. So. And I know on the last episode I said national title or bust. You got to be happy with a good season. You can't win them every year. We're not Nick Saban. So I realized that. I said, it's a failure if you don't win, but we got to the national title game. It was a hell of a year. You weren't even supposed to have a season to begin with. So, I mean, let's be thankful for that. Let's be proud of, Ohio State. We got to see some dominant football this year. So we fell 1 game short. We're going to work, Ohio State's going to work on it and they'll be better next year.
I mean, always to me, it's the goal should always be, I mean, winning the national title needs to be the ultimate goal. But when you kind of think about college basketball, the goal is always to make the Final Four, because when you get to the Final Four, you're playing other good schools, and then whatever happens, happens. If you win it, you win it. But, you get remembered a lot of times. You get the Final Fours get posted before, the national championships get posted. And that's kind of way you need kind of maybe to think about this summits, that how many playoffs do you get through? And, and I want to win titles. We're going to get a title. I mean, I think there's a good chance we'll win the championship next year. Yeah. With the players coming in that we got coming in, it's just, you lose games. And when you get to the playoffs, I mean, these teams are just as equal caliber as you are. So, I mean, they recruit just as well as you do, and you're playing the best of the best. So, you lose games. I mean, I wish we would have lost it in a closer fashion, a better fashion, but, you get blown out. I mean, Nick Saban, even as great as he is, he's been out coached before too. So, I mean, it doesn't happen often with him, but it does. So, I mean, you lose games. So pick yourselves back up and let's go get ready for next year.
And that's some parting thoughts too. I mean, 2 years ago, Nick Saban lost by 28 points to Clemson in a national title game. We lost by 28 points in a national title game. Last year, Clemson got smoked in a national title game. We got smoked in a national title game. Last year, Nick Saban, his team, the Untouchables, they're a year removed from beating Michigan in the Citrus Bowl. So, I mean, things happen to everybody. No one's unstoppable. I know Alabama seems as close as it can be, but sometimes you take one on the chin, and it's how you react to it. It's how you rebound from it.
Yeah. All right. So let's call it a night.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming out. Sorry. We don't want to do this again. We like talking about wins. So this one was a little somber, but we appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you for stopping by at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar Guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.